Hello, good afternoon. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and today's date is Monday, August 18th, 2025. The time is 1:50 p.m. and I am in Miami, Florida. The title of this lecture is Undercover Operatives. The reason I'm doing a lecture on undercover operatives exclusively is because undercover operatives, as I have learned more than ever over the past year, are critical to gang stalking campaigns. As one pulls right up to me in her white truck, right in the middle of a 4-lane highway, and stops his vehicle as soon as I use the word undercover. Okay, he's pulling off now. What is an undercover operative? The nature of undercover operative work has evolved over the past 60 years. And I say evolved over the past 60 years because in the 1960s, this is when the Department of Justice implemented a program called COINTELPRO, Operation Hoodwink. This program and its workings are available publicly right now on the FBI.gov website. Now, mind you, I like to do these discourses outside so from time to time I will have to raise my voice to drown out the background noise, which can include pedestrians, vehicles, and other noise. So adjust your volume accordingly. I consider Operation Hoodwink to be the spiritual progenitor to gang stalking, meaning that gang stalking itself as a program is derived from Operation Hoodwink. Operation Hoodwink was an FBI program that was aimed at disrupting the activities of a number of political dissident groups, including the Black Panthers, the New Ku Klux Klan, and the American Communist Party. The members of these organizations were the subject of investigations and were systematically disrupted and even harmed in their personal life by everyday citizens that happened to be in their general vicinity, in the various vicinities that they went to day to day. The disruption tactics that are present in gang stalking mirror very closely the disruption tactics that were present in Operation Hoodwink. Operation Hoodwink was interesting with respect to undercover operations, with respect to the reality that everyone that the members of the above named political dissident groups came in contact with had undercover operative capacity, even though they were plainclothes, unpaid, unsworn, everyday citizens. They too, like gang stalkers, responded to a system of verbal cues, physical gestures, vehicular maneuvers, and other such signals and cues, which were given to them by federal liaisons, just like undercover federal liaisons are responsible for the signaling that leads to the call and response mechanism between federal liaisons and gang stalkers, which result in the gang stalkers being systematically pointed to a targeted individual's exact location for no reason other than to disrupt, pester, harm, attack, or spread communicable diseases and germs to. Over time, this program successfully disrupted the function of the above-named political dissident groups because the actual members of these groups were unable to properly function and were thus unable to be members, or rather successful members, consistent members, and contributing members to the above-named political dissident groups. Gang stalking has a similar effect on the lives of any American citizen in the same capacity that the above-named COINTELPRO Operation Hoodwink had on the political groups that it targeted in the 1960s. It effectively forces the targeted individual out of the societal mechanism and out of the ability to compete in society because of the various personal and occupational disruptions that a targeted individual faces at the hands of his gang stalkers, the signal takers, the disruptors, the ones who are always around and who are always destructive. This program serves as, and this program I'm referring to, gang stalking, serves as a human experimentation mechanism, a human behavior observation mechanism, a behavior modification mechanism, an attack mechanism, and a political malfeasance mechanism. Now, how are undercovers, and when I say undercover operatives, I'm talking the entire spectrum of undercover operatives, are a part of this program in a very intimate way with respect to not only the data they collect on targeted persons, but the horrible destructiveness that their presence causes in the life of a targeted individual. Now, I've decided to dedicate this, not necessarily dedicate this video, but rather make this video an exposition of undercover operative work in gang stalking, as opposed to just the gang stalkers themselves, because undercover operatives have a unique designation in a gang stalking campaign. And the reason undercover operatives have a unique designation in a gang stalking campaign is because they are actual employees of the state. They are not simply a group of aloof, knuckle-headed gang stalkers that have nothing better to do than send and receive these physical and verbal signals, okay, these vehicular signals and other such cues, to go after people simply because they're told to. Undercover operatives who introduce themselves into a gang stalking campaign against a person are basically a complex variety of plainclothes undercover operatives who actually have an official title with the state, albeit a hidden title because they don't want their covers blown. I've blown a bunch of covers, quite frankly, of these people on purpose and publicly. I've called out quite a few undercovers right to their face in front of people, on buses, in grocery stores, in shopping malls, you name it, where there are lots of people, on purpose. And that's because the undercover operatives that I encounter on a daily basis conduct themselves like zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs. And the reason the undercover operatives that I encounter conduct themselves like zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs is because they believe that because of their designation as undercover operatives and employees of the state, that they can act like zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs with no recourse. And that may be true. The United States federal government has a long and prolific history of allowing undercover operatives who are assigned to a person to monitor that person, to surveil that person, to gather information on that person, to disrupt that person, to act like zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs with no recourse whatsoever. So that's why they act like that, is because they know that there's no penalty for them acting like zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs. And they'll continue to act like zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs, because to be able to act in such a hostile manner towards a person anonymously and as an employee of the state gives them certain protections against punishment for acting like, you guessed it, zoo animals, degenerates, and thugs. So these thuggish undercovers that I'm coming across, and mind you, I am seeing thousands of these per week. Okay, there are a lot of United States citizens that go on these undercover operative missions. And it's not just for local police departments. There are so many different auxiliaries in the United States federal government that use undercover operatives for missions. It's not just the police, it's not just the state troopers, it's not just federal law enforcers and state law enforcers and local law enforcers, but the U.S. military, the armed services, the Department of Defense. They have undercovers as well. So do bail bonds enforcers. So do bounty hunters. So do private investigators, private investigatory firms. So do private security firms. And so do other federal, state, and local law enforcement, semi-law enforcement, and Department of Defense mechanisms, including Department of Defense contractors. Department of Defense contractors have undercover operations they can go on too. In addition to the daily gang stalkers that you see, there are a ton of different auxiliaries in the government and private sectors. We'll call it public and private sectors. Public being government, private being private companies, privately held companies. They have undercovers too. There are private companies in this country that have either no government affiliations or loose government affiliations that work with the federal, state, and local governments to go on law enforcement-based missions. Private companies can use undercovers on a person as well. When you're a targeted individual, all of your undercovers, regardless of the federal, state, or local law enforcement, semi-law enforcement, public or private sector auxiliary, they basically take on the persona of your existing gang stalkers, so they can blend in better. So if your gang stalkers as a target, if you as a targeted individual have gang stalkers, and assuming I'm not the only targeted individual in the world, we'll assume I'm not, but let's say there are others. If there are a team of undercovers or several teams of undercover operatives that are assigned to that targeted person, they take on the persona, character, and actions of your existing gang stalkers. So if your existing gang stalkers act a certain way around you daily as a mechanism or a protocol, if they use the same domination tactics, the same germ warfare, the same vehicular maneuvers, the same attack mechanisms, etc. The undercover operatives that jump in on your gang stalking campaign will use those same methods, those same attack methods, those same thug unit methods against you. So their cover won't be blown. But see, they don't know, and I'm trying to help them see, because mind you, I don't know who is sending these undercovers around me. I don't know if it's federal, state, or local government, or if they're private, or if they're contractors of some kind. But mind you, I mentioned federal, state, and local law enforcement. I mentioned the military, etc., etc. Not every federal, state, and local law enforcement or military staffer is a thug, degenerate, or a zoo animal, okay? I'm talking about these undercovers that are in my vicinity right now, today. The ones who have been in my general vicinity daily and nightly for the past year. Yes, they are degenerates, thugs, and zoo animals, and I've told them this to their face, and I've blown a lot of covers doing this, and I'm gonna blow some more too. I'm gonna blow a lot of covers. And that term blowing a cover means exposing an undercover operative. If you expose an undercover operative, they have to go away. That's just their safety protocol. They can't do nothing to you because, quite frankly, most of them are too afraid to show you credentials. I've been asking these guys for credentials for the past year. I see them and I say simply, show me your credentials. Why are you here? I've said it out loud to the ones that are hiding around me. Show me your credentials. Give me a bullhorn. I'll yell it out. I'll turn that bullhorn all the way up, stand right outside and say, show me your credentials. Your credentials being, show me a badge. Show me an application. Show me some paperwork. Show me a mission statement. Show me anything that shows that you are a part of a government, semi-government, or private agency that has commissioned you to surveil me to the point where I am actually seeing you and standing next to you, or you walk on a bus and sit right next to me and act like an animal. Show me where you have the official capacity to do that legally. I haven't seen one credential yet. That means the people who are sending these guys around me are cowards, and that means the people themselves that are being used in an undercover capacity are cowards. Now, I've said this in several of my other videos, and I'll make the point once again. If you have sworn an oath of service to your country or your government, regardless of where you come from, as far as whether you're foreign or domestic, you're a foreign or domestic spy, or you're a foreign or domestic observer, or a foreign or domestic data gatherer, if you've sworn an oath of service to your country or a state, and I'm not talking a temporary oath of service, I'm talking an actual oath of service that you're expected to observe throughout the course of your career, and you are responsibly observing me from a distance, I don't mind you, because at the very least you're going to see, observe, and hear the truth about gang stalking. But if you are an undercover operative who has some sort of an axe to grind, or you're simply around me so you can act like a degenerate, thuggish zoo animal with no recourse, I'm gonna blow your cover every chance I get, and I'm gonna treat you like garbage. Because for one, I don't need you in my life with respect to your presence because you don't enhance or do anything positive for me as a citizen who is on a mission of freedom in a country that alleges to be the freest country on earth. You all can go somewhere else. My significant other, Lori, doesn't need you in her life either, because you don't do anything but pester her and put her in harm's way as well. A lot of you walk around as if you have no wits and no soul. I consider you to be violent. I consider you to be hostile. I consider you to be instigators. I consider you to be homicidal. I consider you to be subversive. I consider you to be a militia, and you're anonymous. And keep something in mind, undercovers. This is a video I want you to save, because I know I got some listening to me right now using sophisticated surveillance equipment. That's okay. I can't see you. You can't pester me from where you are. That's okay with me. But for you all to keep sending these people to my immediate vicinity with the objective of simply annoying me to no end, you all can go climb a tree. And I'm going to say to the United States national security apparatus, because there are national security undercovers that come around as well, you all ought to be ashamed of yourself for allowing these idiots around U.S. citizens acting the way they do and putting U.S. citizens in the danger that they put us in. I welcome responsible, ethical, and purposeful surveillance. But if you are surveilling me just for the sole purpose and sole intent of infiltrating my biorhythm, which is the trajectory of my daily movements, so you can try and make yourself feel like some kind of a tough guy by disrupting that, go climb a tree and sit there and never show your face to me again, because I have no business with you. Now, if you have business with me and you think what you're doing is acceptable, this video is for you. But I'm not going to make videos about you every day. I have more important things to talk about in the grand scheme of things with respect to clandestine gang stalking. In a few of the videos I've done over the past month, I've had them disrupted by operatives and gang stalkers who simply want to interject, make a mockery of, or simply tick me off while I'm doing a lecture on a topic. So, for my listeners who've listened to the last few videos I've done, particularly those on the ideal population, parts 1 through 5, which are on TikTok presently, you'll notice that during those lectures where I talk about weapons technology, that these aloof, undercover, gang stalker types keep popping up and disrupting the lecture, disrupting the lecture, and I have to turn and address them while I'm doing the lecture, because they're popping up seemingly out of nowhere for no cause other than simply to make their presence felt or to disrupt what I'm doing. So when I run into those types, the only thing I can realistically do is let my viewers know that one of these has arrived, and or just walk away from them, because it's rude that they're being signaled to me while I'm in the middle of something occupational. I am the president and chief executive officer of EIS Media Group and Bible Discourses LLC. Lectures on gang stalking is a part of my occupation. So while I'm conducting these lectures, which is a part of my occupation, undercovers and or gang stalkers being signaled to me in the middle of the lecture for no reason other to disrupt it or just gather information on how I react to the undercover or the gang stalker who has taken a signal of some kind to my exact location with no reason other to disrupt, pester, harass, or annoy me. You are interfering in my job. You're interfering in my work. You're interfering in my entrepreneurial capacity. You're interfering in matters that quite frankly don't concern you. And to you undercover operatives, the one who have absolutely no class whatsoever, I'm gonna tell you right here and now, you're disgusting. You're disgusting, you're annoying, and you're troublesome. Okay? You appear to want me to do a video about you so you can find a reason to feel threatened, so you can continue pestering me under the banner of keeping America safe, or probably keeping your own asses safe. And you undercovers, constantly needing a reason to feel threatened so you can continually retaliate against me, so you can continually use the worst thugs you got on your team to pester me on a daily basis. Quite frankly, you are a time-wasting, useless, disgusting thug troop. Okay? And I'm telling you this as close to you, as close to your face rather, as possible. Okay? I can't say this stuff to you personally all the time because a lot of you wear disguises. And a lot of you are dangerous yourselves because a lot of you operatives, you undercover operatives, you create a lot of false narratives about the people you're surveilling. You need a reason to constantly retaliate against your target, just like gang stalkers do. That's how gang stalkers stay and play themselves. They constantly find reasons to need to retaliate. Otherwise, their presence in a targeted individual's life is useless. You undercover operatives are the same way. You constantly create false narratives so that you can constantly be around me and constantly retaliate against me with these thuggish gang stalker tactics, so many of which I have described on my various websites and web pages. And you do it relentlessly, dozens of times a day, every day, because you're hateful, hostile thugs. And you act like thugs undercover in an official capacity for a state, government, or company, including semi-governmental companies, because you feel safe acting like a thug when you know you've got government backing. A thug is a thug. And quite frankly, I don't care if you work for the government or not. When you come around people you don't know, I don't care if you're surveilling me or not. When you come around people you don't know and you continually pester them, or you are sent to continually pester a person, and these are not the same undercovers I'm talking about. There are thousands upon thousands of undercover operatives in South Florida. Okay? There are probably more undercover operatives in South Florida per capita than any other geographic region in the country, save maybe LA County. undercover operative work in Miami, Florida is extremely prevalent. And I probably just today have encountered more than 100 just today. They're surly. Okay? They're cumbersome. They're burdensome. They're heavy. They're annoying. They're sticky. It's hard to get rid of them. It's hard to shake them. It's hard to walk away from them because some of them will just straight up follow you. Okay, there have been a number of undercovers that have annoyed me so bad, particularly on the county bus, that I just stop wherever I am and get off the damn bus. They will literally jump up as I'm leaving and get off at the exact stop that I get off at. They don't even have the class to act as if they're not following me anymore. Now they're just blatantly and openly doing it. A lot of the undercover operatives that I encounter here don't speak English. Some of them are second or third generation Cubans or Puerto Ricans or from another Spanish-speaking part of the world. Why? I don't know why. It's not as if people from the Spanish-speaking world make better operatives than other people. As a matter of fact, I think it's a bad tactic and a bad strategy to make so many of the undercovers down here Cuban. Why? Because put something together. If you're a targeted individual or a person who is being surveilled by undercover operatives, in addition to your existing gang stalkers, what sense does it make to make the overwhelming vast majority of the undercover operatives of the same ethnicity as the people around you? Here's what that's going to do, and here's why that's so dumb. It's stupid because over time, the targeted individual is going to start associating everyday Cuban people with the disgusting behavior that he's experiencing from his undercover operatives. That might create animosity between the population of the county that he's living in, Miami-Dade County, and the targeted person himself. Over time, that targeted individual is going to start disliking people of Hispanic descent because of the negative experiences he's had with the Hispanic undercovers. But you all want Hispanic people to be the undercovers, to be the harassers, to be the disruptors, because you think it makes them feel good about themselves ethnically. You think it makes them feel good about themselves as Spanish-speaking people to harass a gringo, an Americano. You think it makes them feel good to be as second or third generation people whose demographic has only been in the country for about 100 years, to harass somebody like me, for example, an African American whose progenitors have been in this country for 600 years. You're allowing people who already have animosity towards my demographic to use the power of the state to disrupt me without recourse. That's what you call clandestine thuggery, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, there is a racial element to gang stalking. That's about as close to the racial element that I can get to gang stalking without making this a lecture on race, which is not. Gang stalking is not exclusively about racial considerations. Racial considerations rear their ugly head in gang stalking campaigns from time to time, but ultimately, gang stalking is a universal crime against humanity. And I've experienced it by every race that there is here in the United States. There is not a single socio-political, socio-economic, or social group here in the United States that I have not experienced gang stalking's annoying hate tactics from. I've experienced from everybody, and quite frankly, the gang stalking mechanism is regional. So for example, if I were to pack up and move to Massachusetts right now, my gang stalking campaign would not stop. I would be handed off from the federal liaisons here in Miami to the federal liaisons in the next jurisdiction, we'll call it, and they'll hand me over to the federal auxiliaries in the next jurisdiction as I cross state lines, as I cross county lines rather. And as I cross state lines, the federal liaisons from Florida would hand me off for my gang stalking campaign to the federal liaisons in Georgia. And as I travel north, the further I travel north, you would see the federal liaisons in each state pass me off to the federal liaisons in the next state as I traveled north to Massachusetts. And then when I got to Massachusetts, my gang stalking campaign would commence with whoever the demographic is in Massachusetts. They would be reacting to similar signals, verbal gestures, verbal commands, vehicular maneuvers, and other gestures to point me out to the next stalker, so the next stalker could approach me in some capacity, be it in car, scooter, bike, foot, and pester me in some kind of way. So it wouldn't be as if the population of gang stalkers here in Miami would follow me to Massachusetts. And next thing you know, I'm in Massachusetts and I have Cuban, Spanish-speaking gang stalkers harassing me in Massachusetts. It doesn't work like that. I would be handed off at some point from one federal liaison to the next until I got to Massachusetts. Then the federal liaisons in Massachusetts would pick me up and my gang stalking campaign would commence in Massachusetts with the citizen population there. But the reason I had to bring up, and trust me, I had to bring this up, was the demographic of my undercovers. Well, at least most of my undercovers here, is because for one, it is no mystery to me or anyone else that Cuban people generally have a hostile disposition towards African Americans. That's just any day of the week. So to hand power to Cuban undercover operatives and allow them to perpetrate gang stalking attacks against me as wards of the state, it's stupid. Because what is this going to do to my relationship with Hispanics in general? It's going to make it go down, not up. I am not going to leave Miami with a more positive view of Hispanics because of the things that I've experienced with Hispanic undercover operatives. You see? So that is in poor taste, okay? I think the United States federal government and how it uses undercovers and how it allows undercovers to operate is poor. I think it's bad law enforcement. I think it's bad policy. It's bad sociology. And it's just simply nonsensical. Okay? And ultimately, this whole matter with these undercovers is going to come to a head. Because quite frankly, I ought to be filming these idiots. And not just the Cuban ones. Because one thing I've encountered down here while doing this project is a lot of the people, particularly the people of Hispanic backgrounds who hear my work, go and create false narratives about what it is I'm saying. I don't know if they or others or their friends or family, their pastors, their business associates, their teachers, whoever it is that's listening to it with them, they don't understand what I'm saying, or what I'm saying just isn't registering, but they're creating false narratives about what I'm saying. And they're using it to vilify not only me, but people like me, people in my demographic. So yes, I encourage any African American to come to Miami-Dade County, Florida. I have to be here, quite frankly, because the climate and the openness of the county are conducive to my success in talking about gang stalking. And that's why I'm here. I'm here because of the geographic climate, and I'm here because of the openness and size of the county. But I invite any African American to come down here and stay for a week. Not with me, but I'm talking about just like on a personal vacation or something like that, and see what the climate here is. Okay? The racial climate. Imagine people having the power of the state acting in the way a lot of the general populace does towards the people of my demographic. And that's what you have here with the undercover operatives. Okay? There are white ones or Caucasian ones too. And mind you, I can spot these guys easily, and I've blown covers of Hispanic, Caucasian, and black undercover operatives on purpose, just because they came around me acting like zoo animals, and I blew their cover in front of a lot of people and exposed them as undercover operatives, and I never saw them again. Okay? Because they lack professionalism. They lack purpose. But regardless of the demographic of the undercovers that I'm encountering, I've blown the covers of quite a few of them, regardless of their race, because the undercovers in Miami, Florida conduct themselves like zoo animals, and they have no accountability whatsoever. And they're hostile, and they find ways to spread sicknesses and germs to people, using their bodily functions as weapons. And I think they're disgusting for that. And, excuse me, gotta clear my throat. So the demographic climate here is already poor. Excuse me, the demographic relations climate here is already poor. Okay, between people of my demographic and the people of the majority demographic here. And it becomes worse when you use operatives from the majority demographic to surveil and pester someone in my demographic repeatedly, dozens of times a day over time. it only causes more strain in interdemographic relations than before. And keep something in mind too. I'm talking, and I've said this out loud to these operatives. I haven't said it to my audience yet, but I think now's a good time. So, I think it's especially egregious that I have Cuban operatives that sit up around me from time to time and point rifles at my general vicinity. That I find especially egregious because, quite frankly, as a man of my demographic living where I live, there are people in the majority demographic here in Miami-Dade County right now that wouldn't mind killing someone in my demographic for no reason at all if they knew they could get away with it. So for you all, I'm talking to whatever federal, state, or local auxiliary is using Cuban riflemen in my general vicinity. As sort of an insurance policy or security mechanism, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Because if they weren't in an official state capacity, a lot of the guys in your unit wouldn't mind pointing rifles at me for no reason. But you got them in a state capacity doing it. And it's disgusting. And while I'm on the topic of narratives, I want to talk about the false narratives that undercover operatives use to constantly stay on top of a target or a subject. I've talked in previous videos about the mental gymnastics that undercover operatives use to justify staying on top of a target or keeping a target in their sights. I've talked about how stupid, aloof, and petty their arguments are for staying in the mix. Okay? They will take anything I say or anything I do, intentionally misinterpret it or spin it, as they call, and use that as justification to stay on. So, for example, let's take this one here. I talked about the Cuban riflemen I got around me that are in an undercover capacity. Of course they work for the Department of Defense. I see right through this stuff. I've been writing about this stuff for 10 years now, experiencing it for 25. I see right through it. It's hostile. And you guys think that you can show up here because of things I've said in my First Amendment rights capacity and use these hostile tactics against me personally? It's disgusting. Now, let's talk about narratives. So let's take today's lecture, for example. Now, as a matter of fact, let's take a lecture I did a few days ago, where I talked about, but if the United States federal government had the wherewithal to formally declare war against its citizens, rather than just throw them into gang stalking campaigns, what would happen? I referenced Benito Mussolini and his bold rise to power when he organized tens of thousands of Italian peasants storm the capital of Rome, depose the existing prime minister, which is also called the premier, or we would call it the president of the Kingdom of Italy at that time, and informed the sitting king of Italy that he was going to be the new president to His Majesty's kingdom. a liaison or an operative would hear me say that, or maybe they'd listen to the video after I recorded it, because they hacked my tablet. I know that too. Or maybe they listened to one of the other recordings on this topic that I have saved elsewhere. And they would listen through it, and they would listen to it, these operatives, these liaisons, these stalkers, and pick through the lecture. Excuse me, clearing my throat. And find narratives or talking points or general statements being made that they want to try and spin as, quote, threatening. So they'll nitpick through an hour-long video, these liaisons, these operatives, these stalkers, the ones that are too afraid to look me in the face and show me their credentials. They'll nitpick through an hour-long video and nitpick little points that they find to be aggressive. And they'll spin that point out of control and say, this is why we need to surveil him right here. He's being threatening. He's making threats. He's saying he's going to do to us what Benito Mussolini did in Rome. He's saying that he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Shut up. Okay? And it's like this. If you liaisons, and that's who I'm talking to when I say shut up, because you guys are spinning my narratives out of control and you're using them as a pretext to continue pestering me. The reason I'm telling you to shut up is because, quite frankly, I don't think you all have the intelligence to understand the narratives that I'm presenting. You don't have the wherewithal, and I'm talking to operatives and liaisons of all demographics here, not just the Cuban ones, because when I post this online, no doubt my Cuban operatives will try to spin this narrative out of control and try to make it one of racial hatred. Fine. Do whatever it is that makes you think you're doing a good job as an undercover operative. I don't give a shit. Okay? Learn to understand narratives before you start making comments about the narration. If you don't understand what I'm saying, don't try to create a narrative that's false out of what I'm saying as a pretext to stay on top of my situation. Maybe they ought to require educational requirements for the operatives so that it includes operatives that are able to understand not only the English that I'm speaking, but the general points being made. Send operatives that know how to observe from a distance. Send operatives that don't act like zoo animals. Send operatives that don't need to be 13 inches away from me at all times. Send operatives that know how to walk past me on the county bus rather than sit right next to me. Send operatives that I do not have to constantly avoid. Send operatives that are not so dumb as to try and use their bodily functions as germ spreading devices against me and other people that come in contact with them. Send operatives that don't equate their personal safety with acting like a total degenerate everywhere they go. Okay, because that's their whole thing. I'll do whatever I got to do to stay safe. That's what an operative will tell you. That's what a federal liaison will tell you. I got to do anything I got to do to stay safe while I'm out in the field. If that means using my body or my bodily functions as a germ spreading mechanism or as a bacterial communication mechanism, that I'm going to use my body as a weapon against anyone and everyone I come across to ensure that my distance is kept and to ensure my safety, even if it means I have to straight up lie on people, even if it means I have to destroy or fuddle narratives that targets use on their video programs like Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, even if I have to totally mischaracterize every word that comes out of his mouth and make it a threat, I'm gonna do that too. Even if it means making up stories about a target so that I have an excuse to stay on him with my unit, I'm gonna do that. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to stay safe, even if it means trample on the rights and civil liberties of everyone I meet. There are a lot of federal liaisons who are allowed to approach their job like that. There are a lot of undercovers who are allowed to approach their job like that. Okay? And I have to be blunt today. I have to be candid today. Excuse me. I gotta be blunt today. I have to be candid today. Because in a gang stalking campaign, there's no place for minced words. If you are a genuine targeted individual and you have a need, a personal desire, and the fortitude to get the word out about this governmentally inept crime against humanity that is gang stalking, you have to tell the whole story. And not only do you have to tell the whole story, but you have to tell it with the good components, the bad components, and the ugly components that make up the holistic story. Now, I got into some things today that were ugly, but it needed to be said. And quite frankly, I am of the mindset that I stand by 110%, okay, 150% even, everything I've ever said publicly. If I say it online, I mean it. If I type it online, I mean it. I don't believe in minced words. I don't believe in beating around the bush. I don't believe in quote unquote pulling punches when it comes to political